She's been called the new queen of noir. Finally, this spring her books are available in Swedish. The first one out is called Dare Me, om du vågar, and is an international bestseller. Do you dare to meet this thrilling author? I'm very, very happy to introduce the special guest of this evening, all the way from Queens, New York. Please welcome the award-winning novelist Megan Abbott. Hi, Megan. You're hugging Sweden.
Oh, good.
Please.
I prefer the hug.
I'm so happy to have you here.
It's so good to see you here.
Your first book is out in Swedish, Om du vågar. Can you say that?
De vågar?
Good.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Always have to test my
Yes,
international
it's
guest,
good.
you know. Dare Me in English.
Right, that's right.
It came out a few years ago.
Yes,
in the States.
2012, yeah.
And how was the talk of it in back home?
It was very exciting. You know, it was my sixth book in the U.S., but it's definitely the one that it made the biggest splash. So it was very exciting.
Your breakthrough, you can
yeah,
call it,
I think probably so. It seemed to draw new audiences that I hadn't had before, and a lot of discussion, which has been really fun.
You've been compared to Gillian Flynn.
Yeah.
You know, Gone Girl, yeah.
Yeah, that came out the same year, and she and I are know each other pretty well, and we have similar influences. So it's been fun to be grouped together.
So you were friends with Gillian a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, we both were inspired by a lot of the same books that we read growing up. We're around the same age, and by a lot of the same true crime stories and Shirley Jackson novels, and sort of a lot of women behaving badly stories. So
yeah, that's one of your strong sides to write about. And you look so happy and strong, and in your books the women are both mean and weak, and Gillian says this very good. She says these nice words about the book. Tense, dark, and beautifully written, Dare Me is not a traditional thriller, but it's a potent reminder that the mind of a girl can be a very scary place.
Yes. I think that's so true, and I think that was one of the reasons that people responded to it, is that we women know that girls are complicated and have lots of dark, strange feelings, and but no one ever really talks about it that much.
No?
You know, it's sort of, at least in the States, in America, it's sort of there's this idea that all American girls are pure and happy and go lucky and maybe a little vain and materialistic, but certainly not people with dark feelings or ambitions or aggressions or desires. And so that's been one of the pleasures of writing the book and hearing people respond to it. You get to hear all their secrets of their girlhoods.
And why do you like to dig into the dark sides?
I guess it's sort of we all feel these things, and we're sort of maybe ashamed of these sort of bad feelings, but they are universal. They're kind of primal, and we may not act on them. Hopefully we don't all act on them, but they're certainly part of all of us. We all feel things we're not supposed to feel. We all have, secret aggressions and ambitions, and so I think if fiction cannot let us give voice to those, then where do we have an outlet for it?
In the Om du vågar, Dare Me, we meet Addie and her best friend since ever, Beth, and their cheerleader coach, Colette. It's about power play and revenge. And can you describe this environment where the story takes place?
Yes, it's they're cheerleaders, so but that's sort of really just the device for the story. American cheerleading is intensely competitive and rather dangerous, and everybody wants to be the top girl, the top of the pyramid. If you've ever seen the sort of classic cheerleading pyramid, it's very dangerous, but it's also the star shot. So squads can be very competitive and backbiting, and girls sort of fighting. And this charismatic coach comes in, and she sort of upsets the power balance on the squad. And she's also very attractive and enticing, and the girls become sort of starstruck by her. But she's somewhat complicated woman with troubles of her own, and that sort of bleeds into the squad.
Bleeds in.
Yeah.
That's it. How did you came up with this story?
It was a little bit inspired by the finding out how dangerous cheerleading had become in the States. It's there are the most catastrophic injuries for girls. They hurt their spine, they break their neck, their back, and I was sort of fascinated by why girls liked to do this so much. And then also, sort of ripped from the headlines, there was a story of a cheerleading coach in the States who was partying with her squad. She was only 22 or 23, and she would go out with them, and was just fraternizing with these teenage girls, and she got in quite a lot of trouble. Not as much trouble as in the book, but I thought that was really interesting, because when you're 15, 16, you don't really want to be like your mom, or someone who's 22 or 23 seems the height of glamoring, so it can be a sort of dangerous influence.
And how do you find your stories, basically? I mean, you read a lot, of course.
Yeah, I'm a book lover from an early age, so sort of a compulsive reader. But often it's a real life story that is the kernel for me. It gives it the kind of, I don't know, the sort of the whiff of the human, to have a real story, and then I tend to extrapolate from there. But it depends on a way in. You're looking for a character voice, and so I'll keep writing till I sort of hear the voice in my head, and then I know I've got something.
How were you as a teenager? You grew up in a suburban neighborhood outside Detroit?
That's right, yeah, and it was not much happened. It was pretty sort of traditional American suburban upbringing, not a lot of excitement. So I got all my excitement from books and movies and film noir, and I really had a strong yearning for more excitement. So I think that's where the books come from in some way. But I was not a cheerleader at all. So,
No?
so
You were
that's
not?
all made
No?
up. No, I was not that kind of girl. I was the high school newspaper girl. So.
I had the pleasure to have a coffee with you in New York a month ago, and then you told me that all you ever wanted to when you were young was to get away from there.
Yeah.
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 And you had like a dream image of Great Gatsby, is that right?
That's right. I mean, New York was always the place for me, from movies, from I thought my fantasy of Woody Allen movies or old 1930s movies of Park Avenue, and it was always the place I wanted to be. And I've been there 20 years now. So I guess I'm a New Yorker at heart now.
And you live in Queens?
I do. Yes. Manhattan is quite expensive and very small apartments, so I live in an outer borough. But as you know, I do all my writing in Manhattan, so inspired by the city always.
You have a writing space in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Can you describe a typical writing day?
I am a early writer. I have to start early, almost before I'm really awake. It sounds strange, but I promise I revise, so it's not really that sloppy. But I try to not have many conversations with people before I write. I try to keep in a sort of the dream world, the world of the book, and I write I write sort of off and on 7 in the morning till about 3 or 4, and I try not to have too much interaction with the world before then. And then I have a cocktail after that. So.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that's the pattern.
But when you write, you don't talk to anyone?
I really try not to. I'll do email and things like that, but the problem is I love talking to people, and that's the danger. If I have lunch or coffee with someone early in the day, it can be hard to go back into the book, to drop back into the character voice, and that always sounds sort of like I'm a crazy person, but the atmosphere is always, the books I love are very atmospheric, you know, and this is something you know from the Nordic Noir tradition. They're very, you sort of fall into that world, and so I don't want to lose that by having a kind of everyday occurrences that bring me back to my sort of regular boring life, you know.
What are your relation to Nordic noir and Scandinavian crime?
It's been, you know, it's been wonderful to see the explosion of it because, you know, in America, noir has always been a little bit ghettoized. It's sort of, you know, but since it's always been sort of considered, you know, a little sleazy noir, you know, but since the rise of Nordic noir, which my parents turned me on to about, you know, 8 or 9 years ago, they were early adopters of it. The reputation of noir in the States has benefited from the explosion of Nordic noir, and I think people no longer see it as this sort of underbelly. It is an underbelly, I suppose, but as sort of lesser literature. And so it's been great for me and wonderful to sort of expand the horizons of the genre.
Do you have any favorite Scandinavian authors?
Well, Joe Nesbo, I have done events with, and he was the first one that I discovered, and because he was so inspired by American noir originally, Jim Thompson, and we've done some events together, and it was great to talk to him because I had enjoyed him so much, and he liked American noir, and sort of the cross-cultural conversation is great. So that was a delight to see, and of course he's somewhat popular now. So
yeah, he's a huge star.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
and,
you. Yeah.
But he, you know, and he's so. He's a compulsive reader, like all the noir writers seem to be, and so it's great fun to you know, to sort of see this, and the influence on American television that Nordic noir and Nordic noir on TV here has had. I mean, it's been a huge, you know, we are all Nordic in America all the time.
Yeah, really?
It feels
Wow.
like, yeah.
You have a lot of hardcore fans, and some of them are authors. The Swedish authors Mats Strandberg and Sara Bergmark Elvgren. They were supposed to be here tonight, but they couldn't. But they send their love and kisses
I did see them. Yes,
everything.
Last night, yeah.
And Mats says, for example, that he loved the Twin Peaks feeling of your books.
Yes, he that Twin Peaks was a big influence on me, and Matt and I talk about it all the time because he was influenced by it too. That came on American television when I was a teenager, and so right when I was sort of starting to write, and it changed everything. You know, I think sometimes we forget how unusual it was at the time, but this idea of this, because I write a lot about American suburbs and small towns, and the idea that if you pull the lid off the darkness and secrets and treacheries that sort of emerge, that whole concept was so entrancing to me, and it sort of, I felt like it gave me an entree to fiction writing, and the atmosphere of that show is one that I sort of never leaves my head. And sometimes I'll play the music when I'm writing. I'll play the soundtrack for it. Even I'm really excited about its return. But it's so surprising how much it has remained an influence for me over the years.
Both your parents are authors. How did you dare to become an author yourself?
I know, it's very, you know, it is a book family for sure. And that might be the reasons I didn't think I would be a novelist until I kind of fell into it. I thought I would be an academic professor of literature. Because it just seemed, you know, it's sort of like you don't want to pick up the family mantle, so to speak. But I guess it was ultimately in the blood, and blood will tell is the American expression, and that it eventually did. My mom does write in the mystery short stories mostly, and my dad does political theory. I think he may influence me more because he and I are big lovers of Shakespearean drama, and I always take all the sort of the power struggles of Shakespearean drama. Jeremy or Duvagar, yes, thank you, was sort of inspired by Richard III, the plot.
Yeah.
So the idea of when someone who wants to seize the throne and knocks off the rivals. So his political theory may have influenced me more than my mom's mysteries.
You dedicate the book to your parents. You write, "To my parents who taught me ambition."
Yes.
What do you mean by that? What is ambition to you?
Yeah, in the book, it's sort of a slightly twisted version of it, but they really, I never felt in my family, as opposed to many people that grew up in Midwestern America, which is more conservative, a little old-fashioned. I never felt that I wasn't allowed to want anything I wanted. As a young girl, I wasn't the person to dream of the beautiful wedding and the sort of that kind of thing. It was whatever I wanted, I should go for, and they always sort of believed in that, and that your brain mattered, and and so for that they were always inspiring. In the book, ambition turns slightly darker, but
it does. Yeah.
It's about wanting to be a leader and in charge, and maybe an oppressor, but.
But you did get married quite young.
I did, exactly. It was a more informal wedding, but
it was not this big American wedding.
No, it was definitely more informal, and I had a short dress and all that. But I married another writer, and it was so the book tradition sort of continued.
And Sara Bergmark Elfgren, Sara och Mats har ju skrivit Cirkeln, som ni alla vet, Engelfors-serien. Sorry for speaking Swedish.
Yes.
Sara Bergmark Elfgren adore you for writing both timeless and contemporary stories. She says your latest book, in English, Fever, is one of the best books she read the last year.
That's so great.
We hope that comes out in Sweden.
Yes, I hope so too.
Yeah. What do you want to scare people, or what do you want us to feel?
I think it's more it's more about being transported, and that sometimes is the form of being frightened or unnerved, but I've always loved what they call in English sensation novels, where you want to turn the page and you feel like you get lost in the book, and it sort of takes hold of you. Those are the books I love to read. So I'm always trying to sort of capture that experience and sort of give it to the reader. That's always the goal, at least, that you feel like you're in a different place, and you're immersed there, and so everything feels very intense and dramatic, and sort of a breathless feeling. I always describe it as everything I read, I want it to feel like the author's whispering in my ear and telling me the story, and that's always what I try to capture in the books, which is also why they're sort of short and intense, and things move very quickly.
Many people nowadays dream about being the next crime star or thriller star, and one writing advice many authors give is write what you know. What do you say?
I say no. I always think that I always think it should be write what you're interested in, that you don't know, that you're fascinated by, or that because then the hunger for the subject matter, the theme, or the world comes through for the reader. I knew nothing about, I'm not a cheerleader. I never was. I've never been on top of a pyramid, and I've never waved a pom-pom. But the rigors of that world and the complexities and the savagery of it, I became fascinated by, and so I followed that interest. And so I always, when I give advice to younger writers, I always say, write what compels you, what you're interested in, what you want to know more about, what you need to know more about.
Write what you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really addicted to you, and I didn't know so much about you half a year ago. Then I was introduced to you, and I'm very happy about that, because I'm a crime lover. I'm going to talk about that more soon. What are your impression about Sweden so far? So you came yesterday and you went to
Yes.
Uppsala, yeah?
Yes, I was in Uppsala yesterday at the English bookstore there, and I saw the old cathedral. And in America, nothing is older than like 60 years. So here, it's been so wonderful seeing medieval churches and this great sense of history, and of course all the crime writers who I told I was coming here, they see such the vanguard of noir that everyone was jealous that I was coming, and they're also jealous that I'm staying at the hotel that is owned by the ABBA.
Rivals. Yeah.
So I'm going to go back with all of you. You know, everyone will deeply jealous, but it's been thrilling to be here. I hope to come back again.
Dare me om du vågar. What do you don't dare to do in life?
Boy, I don't do much. I just write about it. I guess in some ways, much like the way many of us read, we read because they're the things that we want to explore but not actually do. So it's sort of vicarious. So I like to write about things that I'm curious about and would like to do but don't dare do. I'd say probably. I'm always the voyeur.
Prepared to be scared. Read Dare Me om du vågar. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Megan
Thank you
Abbott,
so
for
much.
joining us.
Thank you. Oh, such a pleasure. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Please go here.